I know it's been a bit. Well, for me, it's been a bit. Maybe for you guys, I don't know. Since I put a video out. It is June 3rd, 2019. I know a lot of my videos don't get out for quite a while. Some of them don't get out at all, which is what a lot of my problems are with editing and time and stuff. Well, anyway, you're looking at I believe it's a 95 Nissan Pathfinder. I never did the video on the first 92 that I purchased. I don't believe I put it out. I've had it for a while. It's over at the shop. I will bring it over and do a video. I don't know if it'll be before this one or after this one. I'm not really sure how it's going to play out. I bought this for 200 bucks from a kid. Didn't have a title to it. Was going to take the motor out and put in a two-wheel drive version, the pickup he has with a four-cylinder that's not running real good. This has the 3-liter V6. Anyway, that was his plan, and he never could find a transmission. Ran out of money. He took a four-wheeling, took the 15-inch wheels and tires, and started stripping this thing, and it's a mess. That's why I only paid 200 bucks for it. Part of what he did, though, that kind of is aggravating, is that he started pulling the motor before he ran out of money, and I've just plugged in about 50 wires, and there's still a bunch more. I'm not even, I mean, they're marked, but they're not marked. Since I didn't do it, I didn't mark it. I don't know what they are. The coil's missing, the airbox is missing. He drained the oil, which he told me he did, but the problem is he took the drain plug, so there's not a drain plug. I'd really like to hear this thing run prior to me pulling it out. So if it still needs a rebuild, then at least I know it needs a rebuild. I don't pull this thing out, stick a timing belt and water pump, thermostat, you know, all that stuff in there and put it in one to find out it's no good. So the rear drive shaft is in the back, or it's actually on my trailer. Front drive shaft is unhooked on the transfer case end. It is a 5-speed, which I would love to do a conversion because the one I have is an automatic. The problem is I don't have that kind of time. I need these projects gone. They're taking up space and they're taking up time. And if somebody is interested in it, what I may do is sell it as a unit with all the parts, you know, the clutch, brake pedal, master cylinder, transfer case, you know, transmission, all of it, and then see if they want to do their own swapping and do it. Otherwise, I may just advertise the parts and try to sell it. Anyway, with that being said, I am going to attempt to figure out how to put this back together. Fuel lines were actually undone, but what was a surprise is he capped the return and the fuel line on the vehicle that he's not keeping, but didn't plug the lines off for the motor he is keeping. Now the fuel filter is right here and it's not capped either. I'll have to pull that off and blow it backwards to make sure nothing got in it. Since I don't know where half of this went, I can already see that the ground cable is actually unbolted. I will have to figure out where that went, at least partial. I'll probably have to, I've actually got the trailer unloaded. I may just have to go over and get that Pathfinder and bring over here and set next to it. That way I kind of got an idea of what parts, you know, where everything goes. I mean, I can pull the air cleaner box. The mass airflow sensor is on the air box, I'm sure, and being a different year, the engines are basically the same, but the electronics may have changed. That's kind of common on a lot of that stuff, so I'm not really sure if half the stuff is actually interchangeable. So I don't know yet, but I may just go get that here in a little bit and bring it back over. It does start and run. It does move a little, but the timing belt, the story I got was the timing belt had broke, and it may be in another video. I don't know. I may just, like I said, add that 92 onto this one. The timing belt broke. They took it to a shop, spent a boatload of money. The shop they took it to has been around for a long time, but here's a good example of why I don't like taking my stuff to people. They replaced the coil, they replaced the fuel pump before they finally realized it was a broken timing belt. And I may have again said this on other videos, but when they have a broken timing belt, they make a distinctive sound when they turn over, and it's completely different than a normal you know, than a normal crank over. And how a garage wouldn't know what that sound was, I just don't know. But either way, it doesn't matter. They spent $900 getting the timing belt, water pump, all that stuff replaced, plus towing bills, just to find out the motor is still junk. It's got bent valves, and so I was just looking for a set of heads. But the guy I got it from was talking about that's easy to get these timing marks off, and possibly they've got one off a little bit. And I said, man, I don't know. It's making sounds too. I said, I think it's you know, it's catastrophic. But let's look into what you're saying. So we brought it over here. I checked the timing marks. It was fine. So I pulled the distributor cap and lined everything up, and everything was fine. Everything lined up where it was supposed to be. So I did a compression check, which obviously you had, you know, it was down on compression on at least a few cylinders because of bent valves. 1 and 2 were 0, which I expect with bent valves. One of them was like 100, one was like 125, but 2 of them, one was like 60 and one was like 50. Something like that, 50, 70, 60, 70, whatever they were, but they were lower than the other 2, and that doesn't make sense to me, because that tells you that either the timing mark is off a tad, or it tells me that anyway. It was my come to conclusion, and then or it's something else is wrong, because you either have compression, you don't have compression. If you have low, there's something else wrong. That's how I feel about it. So I went and got a bore scope, stuck down 2 of the cylinders that were low, and the cylinder walls were really, really bad. So I got more information, is that the kid had gotten it hot, and then whether it be a head gasket or just, you know, a leak or whatever it was, it actually got hot, and he continued to try to start it, and when it finally did, it then broke the timing belt. So that motor to me was completely junk. Now I did find rebuild kits on eBay really, really cheap for these 3 liters, and I'm talking with pistons and everything, gaskets, pistons, of course nothing with the heads, but you know, bearings and stuff like that for, you know, less than like $300 or $350. I don't know what the number was. So these are relatively easy to rebuild, but by the time I find a set of good heads or whatever, that was my concern. So I figure if it does not have a broken timing belt, which what I'm going to do is pull the distributor cap here in a minute, since I don't know if I want to try to mess with trying to start it, but I'd really like to hear it. That's why I may, like I said, go get that other Pathfinder, and at least make sure that when I turn the crank that the cap, you know, that the rotor's turning with it. And if it does, then I have a pretty good idea that the timing belt didn't break, because that's my biggest concern, is starting it with an unknown timing belt. And he said this thing sat at least 2 years out in the field. After he took it mudding, obviously the whole underneath side looks the same way. I should have washed it before I brought it to the house, so I'll probably have to do a little cleanup. But anyway, when you see this next video, I may have the other one here. Otherwise, I'm going to try to do a first start on it. And I'm going to obviously get an oil plug and oil, and it's not going to need a radiator. It's not going to need the AC hooked back up or alternator or any other stuff. But it does need enough to make the electronics work, and a lot of the vacuum lines. I've already hooked 2 vacuum lines back up, but I see vacuum hoses and tubes and stuff laying all over that's open. So I just took the one back up and just kind of partially to the vacuum with the brakes, which it does not have, because he took one caliper off and laid it up on top of the rotor. I don't know what this kid was doing, but anyway, we're going to look into this and see if we can get her started. Well, I told you, next video you're going to see either a first start or that 92 Nissan sitting here, and I decided I wanted to show you this first because I didn't really do a good walk around. I started stripping a lot of parts off of it because of the passenger fender, because I didn't do a walk around. Like I said, man, it just didn't do very well at the first video on it. This fender was bowed out, about a foot sticking out this side. Every time I walked by it, it was catching me, and I had to pull the cowl, pull the hood, of course. I got both fenders. I pulled the condenser and all its components. I plugged a lot more stuff in, found a few things. I don't know where they go still, but everything is pretty much here basically on the engine, and I've done a pretty good cleanup on it, as good as it's going to get right now. I did find the drain plug. It was actually sitting, where am I at? It was sitting in here. I just happened to notice it sitting there before I started cleaning. So anyway, like I said, it's a 95 Nissan Pathfinder. There's not a straight piece of sheet metal on it. The interior, I don't know what he was doing, what he was after, but he tore the heck out of everything. I even see the heater core is boogered up. I don't know what he was doing in there, but I did have to drill the steering column out to get to unlock. You can still start these older ones with that wire it's hanging down there. I'll show you when I go to start it. But he just tore the heck out of it. The seat came out of his pickup truck. It's not bolted down, just sitting there. The dash is busted. There was about 500 of these plastic balls back here, and every time I open a door, it seems like a ball falls out and rolls down my driveway. I start throwing the parts, you know, kind of inside here. And something else that's different is that the spare tire goes inside here, where on the 92 it's actually on a rack in the back. But anyway, everything is just beat to death on it. And another reason why I stripped it down is because I don't have a title to it. A lot of places will not take them without a title, and that's kind of a state thing. You know, every state has their rules about getting rid of stuff with titles, or without, excuse me. Anyway, with that being said, we have a place that will take them if they look like they can't be ever put back on the road again, and they don't, but scrap has to be up like, you know, 55, 60 a ton. But you basically got to strip it. There can't be a fuel tank, no motor, transmission, transfer case. Matter of fact, they prefer the doors to be pulled on it too. I mean, that's how much they want it stripped. So I thought, kind of kill two birds with one stone. I'm never going to use this. I'm probably going to cut that center piece out so I can get the engine out of there a little easier. Matter of fact, I may just cut that whole core support out. Don't need it. It's bent up anyway. Mine's not really wrecked, so you know, so I think what I'll do is just cut that clear out of the way, make it easier to get it out. It also may make it easier to get it out with the transfer case too, because this is set up like Avalanche. Got torsion bar, which I didn't realize that these have torsion bar suspension in the front, and it's the same problem. You have to separate the transfer case from transmission to get them out because the torsion bar brackets across in a way. Now I could easily take them out because I don't ever plan on putting this on the road, but I don't want this thing slammed to the ground where I can't get it back on my trailer. So I think it's just easier for me to try to pull it as one unit. It may or may not happen that way, but you know, I will see kind of how it goes. But I kind of wanted to do a quick walk around. I wish that there was things that I could, you know, that I could save off of this. Mine does not have a sunroof, but it's not worth taking that and doing that. You know, like I said, I don't even know if it works. The switch is pulled out of it, and the headliner's tore up, and like I said, I don't think that's going to happen. It's kind of like putting a 5-speed in there. I'd love to put the 5-speed in there. If I was keeping that Pathfinder, I would do the 5-speed swap, but I'm just not going to do it. And this only has 149,000 miles, where that 92, I believe, has 200 on it. So, you know, that's kind of the quick walk around on this. Like I said, I'm sorry I didn't add that on the first one, but next video will either be our first start of the 92, will be here, or maybe both.